Blackburn, the Leroy Hood Science Policy Fellow here at Research America, and I'd like to thank you so much for joining us. If you've tuned into our Alliance discussions regularly, you'll notice that today's is a bit different than what we normally do. This is an interactive advocacy training in phone banking focused on contacting members of Congress about the Office of Management and Budget's proposed rule, regulation for federal financial assistance. This is a rule that could upend how federal research gets funded, from grant terminations to political interference in merit review. So if you're new to these meetings, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. Today, we're joined by our very own Erin Darbouze, who has 15 years of federal government affairs experience, including many years working on Capitol Hill. She'll share with us some practical tips and tricks for effective in-district advocacy, along with plenty of time for your questions. At the end, we're all going to do a group phone bank, and we'll make our voices heard. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a little bit of housekeeping. We want to thank everyone who's part of the Research America Alliance, and we hope to see you at future events. And I also just wanted to say that I think there might be some people on this call who are new to Research America and maybe unsure if your organization is a member. So we're going to drop in the chat a link that lists all of our current members, and we really hope that if you are a member, you'll join us for a future Alliance discussion. And if you're not a member, we hope that you'll consider joining our Alliance, and the best way to do that is to reach out to Don Cook from our team. Jacqueline's going to drop his contact info in the chat, and you can also always join us online. So given that we're doing an interactive session today, we'd like to encourage you to be active participants and turn your cameras on if you're able. Put your questions in the chat. We'll do our best to answer them when we get to the Q&A part. With all of that, let's get right into it. Erin, turn it over to you.
Fabulous. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. I am so excited to be speaking with you, and I think I'll just wait for our slides to pop up. But as Ali said a little about me, I am Erin Darbouze. I'm the Senior Director of Policy and Advocacy here at Research America. I previously worked on Capitol Hill in the House of Representatives for about 6 years before transitioning into government affairs and eventually health policy and patient advocacy work. I recognize some patient advocates on the call that I know very well, so thank you for joining. And I'm going to let Ali and Matt give brief introductions before we get into the nitty-gritty. So Ali, if you want to give your background.
Yeah, so hi again, everyone. I'm Ali. I spent a decade at the lab bench studying first the neuromuscular junction of lizards, like the ones you see in Florida running around, and then fish mating behavior. And then I ended with the gut microbiome and its impact on brain development. So I spent a long time at the bench, but realized that advocacy and advocating for science and health for all is really important. So I've been with Research America for the last 1.5 years, and I could not be happier. And I'll turn it over to Matt.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Matt Ryan. Here, working at Research America as a policy fellow on this sort of sabbatical between my PhD and going back to med school for my MD PhD. Have a lot of research experience as well. Most recently worked on prostate cancer, drug resistance, but got the bug for public policy work. Decided to take a couple years off to get my master's in public policy and work here at Research America. And yeah, excited to see such a strong turnout for today. So we'll dive right in.
Fabulous. Okay, you can go right into the next slide. I know some of you on the call, this is your first time at a Research America event. Thank you so much for coming and participating today. We're excited to have you. If you've never heard of Research America, or you've not yet had the pleasure of working with us, we are a nonpartisan alliance of diverse members. You can see on the screen. We've got all different members from academia to patient groups to industry, scientific societies, you name it. And we advocate for strong federal support of medical health and scientific research. A lot of what we do is convening members around our shared priorities, like the OMB proposed rule that we'll be talking about today. We commission public opinion polling to understand national attitudes towards science and research. And a lot of what we do is also educating policymakers and the public with resources that highlight the value of research. So let's get into why we're here. For anyone who's not been following or has not been following closely, just a quick recap of what's happened and where we are. But for more information beyond what we're talking about on this slide, you can visit Research America's OMB webpage for a deeper dive into this issue, and there is a link in the chat. So OMB is the White House Office of Management and Budget. Along with helping manage the federal budget, it sets government-wide rules for federal grants. On May 29th of this year, OMB proposed rewriting the Uniform Guidance, which governs federal grants and cooperative agreements. This is not limited to NIH or medical research. It affects every single sector that receives federal grants. And OMB's stated goal with these changes or this proposal is strengthening oversight, accountability, and stewardship of taxpayer dollars. And all of those are very important goals, but this proposal includes more than 300 revisions, and the changes were proposed without enough analysis of what the costs could be or the consequences. And so on this slide, you'll see some of the key changes that are some of our major concerns, including weakening the role of expert scientific review by elevating political review of grant decisions, expanding agencies' authority to terminate or suspend grants, and allow grant requirements to change after funding has even been approved. It would discourage scientific collaboration through new restrictions on research partnerships, on conferences, publications, and impose significant new administrative requirements that could increase costs and slow research. So for this proposed rule, OMB only allowed 45 days for the public to review and respond. By contrast, the last time that the Uniform Guidance was updated in 2024, it included an early request for information followed by a 60-day formal comment period. Although this time many organizations, including Research America and members of Congress even, asked for an extension to the comment period, OMB denied requests for that additional time. I will say that despite the comment period being so short, the public response was absolutely extraordinary. Regulations.gov has recorded almost 500,000 comments or submissions and has posted more than 67,000 comments publicly so far. They're adding more every day. And if you're wondering if is that a lot? I don't know, right? The last major update had around 2,000 comments. So yes, there was an enormous turnout in advocacy in these comments. And now OMB has to go through all of those comments and consider and respond to all the substantive concerns that have been raised in the comments before issuing a final rule. The proposal originally had an implementation date of October 1 of this year, but update last week, the Senate passed a bipartisan continuing resolution, also known as a temporary funding bill, that included language that would prevent OMB from finalizing or implementing the rule through December 11th. And that is really important progress, and it was hard won, but it's not yet law. That is in the Senate bill. The House passed a different version of a temporary funding bill without the OMB protection before they left DC. So when the House members return from their August recess, the House and the Senate need to resolve the differences before government funding expires on September 30th. Our ultimate ask is for members of Congress to do whatever they can to stop the OMB rule from being implemented. Which brings us to advocacy. Advocacy, simply taking action to create change. It's about making sure that we aren't sitting silently on the sidelines while decisions that impact us are being made. And if this is your first foray into advocacy, I know it can feel really intimidating, but I want to remind everyone that elected officials always want to know what their constituents are concerned about. It helps them, especially when they're running for office in an election year, to address the issues that their community cares about. And we've already seen advocacy make a difference on this issue. So patients, researchers, universities, nonprofits, local governments, organizations from countless other sectors, transportation, energy, everybody have spoken up. They've made comments. They've reached out to their members of Congress. And they've spoken up so much that a few weeks ago, we were initially told that securing language on the OMB rule in a temporary government funding bill was going to be nearly impossible. Don't hold your breath. But after relentless advocacy, the Senate included it, and it had bipartisan support. And that happened because people raised concerns and members of Congress listened. and we've made real progress, but we need to keep the pressure on until there's a permanent solution. This solution is this is a pause until December 11th, and we need this OMB rule to be withdrawn. And the August recess is a great time to advocate exactly for this. Next slide. How? What do we do? What are we doing here? There's many ways to make your voice heard. Every action that you take counts. You can vote, you can write. There's lots of ways to write. You can call, meet with lawmakers, attend a town hall, share your perspective publicly. Today, specifically, we're focused on making phone calls together. Calling is one of the quickest and simplest ways to register your position with your congressional office. If you're ready to do more after today, though, our August recess advocacy guide that's in the chat, you can see it there, includes talking points, answers to common questions about the rule, and practical guidance on requesting and preparing for a meeting with your members of Congress, specifically on the OMB proposed rule. And please feel free to share any of the resources and things that we've posted in the chat. So before we begin calling, I do want to share a few advocacy tips with you. Most of these will be especially useful if you do take the next step and plan a scheduled meeting or speak to your member of Congress at a town hall or meet with a congressional staffer. Today's phone calls are going to be pretty simple. When you call the district office, the staff member will record your name, they'll confirm your constituent, take down your message, and pass it along. District staff generally focus on constituent services rather than policy, so I wouldn't expect a detailed conversation or questions about the rule. Your goal today is really to simply leave a short and clear message. So the do's. Make a clear ask. You're asking your members of Congress to do everything possible to stop the OMB rule. The meeting setting. This is a phone call. Keep it a short phone message rather than a policy meeting. Lead with people. This is really important in face-to-face meetings, but also the script that you'll be shared, that Matt is going to share with you and walk you through a little bit later, identifies, are you calling your constituent, but are you a patient, a researcher, a physician, giving information that helps the office understand why this matters to you. Acknowledge the goal. This is more for an in-person meeting and it's not in the script, but if your conversation goes farther, you can always explain to the staffer that you do support the goals of the OMB proposed rule of accountability and responsible stewardship of taxpayer dollars. Plain language, that the script, it's already got it in there for you. It explains that there are sweeping changes to how federal grants are awarded and managed without anyone needing to understand what is uniform guidance. Real world impact, your script will connect the rule to medical research, to patients, to taxpayers. And if you choose to add a personal sentence, just keep it brief and explain why reliable federal grant funding matters to you. And stay respectful and concise. Read the script at a natural pace. Thank the staff member for taking your message and end the call. Remembering you don't need to persuade the person answering the phone about your position or keep them on the line. A couple things that you may want to avoid. Don't misrepresent yourself or your institution. Identify yourself clearly. You can say, I am Erin Darbouze. I'm a researcher at the University of Florida, but make it clear that you're calling personally and don't suggest that you're speaking for your employer or your institution. Contacting lawmakers that don't represent you. Offices will disregard messages from people outside of their state or district. So stick with contacting your specific representatives. Don't lead with institutions. Use the rule that best describes your connection to the issue. And especially when you're doing a face-to-face meeting, you'll want to focus on why the rule matters to people rather than to institutions. Don't make assumptions. Don't assume that the staffer you're talking to knows about the rule, agrees with your position, or can answer any policy questions. Their role during this call is primarily to record your message. Don't use jargon. Stay with the language and the script. Keep it simple. Don't overstate potential impacts. For instance, the script says the rule could affect medical research, patients, and taxpayers. It does not claim that the proposal would automatically cancel a particular grant or clinical trial. And of course, don't bring personal politics in the meeting. Stay focused on what we're talking about, the OMB rule, and the action that you want your lawmaker to take. And those are just some helpful tips as you go forward. Now, again, when you call your staff member, the staffer on the other line will most likely just confirm your constituent and confirm your position. It is highly, highly, highly unlikely they are going to debate you on this issue or ask any detailed policy questions. I am 99% sure that is not going to happen. But in the event that someone's got time today and they would like to have a deep conversation with you on this, here's some potential questions that you could be asked. But again, I would anticipate these questions more in a face-to-face meeting, and there's these and more in the advocacy guide that was shared earlier if you are preparing to meet with members of Congress over the August recess. But things that we've heard in face-to-face meetings, again, you will not encounter this on the phone. I would bet a lot of money on that. Is an OMB just trying to stop fraud, waste, and abuse? And yes, and that's important goals, but OMB has not shown that their proposed changes would do that. Shouldn't an administration be able to set priorities? Absolutely, but the concern is allowing political priorities to override the science and the expert review. Are parts of the proposal reasonable? And again, it's all about, yes, the goals are reasonable, but they haven't done the due diligence to ensure that these sweeping changes would do what they've set out to do. Next slide. What's wrong with politicals reviewing grants? Politicals lead the agencies. And this is more about the expansion of their role and the reduction of merit-based review in these decisions. What about public comments? Yes, OMB is reviewing those now, but public comments do not ensure that proposals will be withdrawn or changed. They just need to acknowledge the substantive issues that were brought up in the comments. And then what do you want me to do? What can Congress do? And Congress can urge OMB to withdraw or revise the rule. Many members of Congress actually have already done this and have letters, and I believe the APLU has a great resource. It's on our website and may also be in the chat. If you're looking to see what members of Congress have done something publicly on this, they can seek information from agencies that they deeply care about and see how this will impact their districts. They can raise concerns publicly, make press statements, and they can put protections in future legislation. And before we move into the actual phone banking piece of our session today, I just wanted to check in and see if anyone has any questions. And I see some in the chat. Ralph, is there any use to calling folks that are outside of your state or district? Typically, you can call, they will listen to you, but it will only be recorded and given to the member of Congress if you are the constituent. So you really, at least for today's purposes, want to stick with your direct members of Congress. But if you do work, or if you do feel that you want to reach out to leadership or someone, that sits on a particular committee or position, you can reach out. But again, it will be most impactful for you to call as a constituent to your members of Congress. Yes, I believe we will be sharing the slides later. So there'll be a recording and our slides. If you prefer to write an email rather than making a phone call, you can absolutely do that. And we already have an editable email ready to go on our website. If you're interested in editing it, adding some personal information, you can. Again, every action counts. So whether you send an email, an action alert, a phone call, request a meeting, bump into your member of Congress at the grocery store, all of these things matter and make an impact, and they all are advocacy. And if anyone would like to come off mute and ask a question, we do have a little bit of time for some questions. or if there's anything I'm missing in the chat, Allie.
Yeah, Erin, I think you touched on this one, but is there still value to re-emphasizing something to a district or to a representative that's supportive of this?
A representative that's what?
Supportive of withdrawing the OMB rule.
Absolutely, because you want them to continue to support this. So they need to know that their constituents, their community is watching this issue carefully, that it's a great time if they've already spoken out for you to thank them and say, thank you for putting out that press release. Thank you for leading this letter. Thank you for the support, so that they know they need to continue doing what they're doing on the issue instead of abandoning it because they're not hearing from folks about it.
I think those are the questions that are related to outreach. We've got some specific questions on where the OMB rule is in the process and things like that. But in terms of today's advocacy, I think we've addressed them in the chat. But if I missed you, please unmute.
Yeah, and I'll try to answer the other questions in the chat. Be glad to do that, and we can talk over chat.
Great, thanks, Ellie. And I just want to reemphasize for folks on the call today, the most important thing to remember, you don't need to be a policy expert. You are simply need to identify yourself as a constituent, explain that you oppose the proposed rule, and make the ask. The staff member is going to record your contact information, your position. They are really unlikely to discuss this policy with you. And recording your position is so important. It matters. The office tracks constituent calls, and multiple calls on the same issue show your members of Congress that people at home are paying attention. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Matt, who is going to walk us through the phone script and help you find the correct district office numbers and explain how this phone banking is going to work.
Awesome.
You, Matt.
Great. Thanks, Erin. Yeah, so now we're just going to get into the nuts and bolts of how to actually turn this information into action. So in the chat, we have a kind of one-page guides with these steps laid out. There's going to be a script in there and then also some brief next steps. But instead of just kind of having you read through that, we're actually just going to walk through it all in real time with some screenshots so you know what to expect. So first thing to do is to find your members of Congress. Again, in the guide that you have accessible in the chat, we have a link to congress.gov. They have this really nice tool where you just type in your address, your home address. So for example, here, I'm using a fake address, so don't worry, I'm not doxing myself. This is actually UCSF's address, but you would use your home address. Type in your home address here, click on it, and then what that's going to do is pull up your 3 members of Congress. So for example, here for California and San Francisco, it's 2 senators and representative. For the vast majority of people on this call, you're gonna have three members that represent you. You may live outside of a state, in which case you may have a single delegate. Still definitely worth calling them. Same stuff will apply, but that would be the reason that you have fewer. So what you'll see is that for each one, they'll have some brief information, kind of who they are. This is what they include on the website is actually their contact information for their Washington, D.C. office. Since we're engaging with the district offices and the members are all on recess right now, what we're actually going to do is not use the D.C. office. We're going to contact the in-district office. So the way that you do that is click the link here, which says contact. That'll bring you to their official website. Shown here. I will say each one of these websites is going to look slightly different. So this is where you might have to do a little bit of hunting, but for most of them, and we checked many, you scroll down to the bottom of the page and just look for the office that's closest to you. So in this case, it's very simple. Living in San Francisco, closest office is San Francisco. You're then going to pull this number here. So this 415 number is going to be their telephone number. In this case, they actually have a fax number. You don't want to call the fax. It won't go through, but pull the telephone number and then just make the call. It's that simple. We have also included, like we said, a script here. Allie and I will actually do a brief role play of kind of what this interaction will look like, so you know kind of how to be prepared for it. But Erin teed it up really nicely. It's very simple. It's really just them kind of logging the call. Some brief pleasantries, and then you're done for the day. So, but just some brief things, kind of what this script looks like, and what kind of generally you're going to want to do anytime you call a member's office is first introduce yourself. Who you are, kind of what any sort of relevant information here. A lot of us are directly impacted by this rule because of our connection to the research community. You're also going to want to make sure that you mention that you're a constituent, saying where you live. And then you're going to want to express your message on a particular issue. Make it really clear to them, acknowledge kind of any progress that's been made. And then kind of the final part of this script is to make the kind of strong, kind of clear ask of the member, what can they do? Which again, in this case, we're asking them to do whatever they can to stop the OMB rule. Brief note here, though, is when we were doing kind of our dry run yesterday, we did notice that for some of the districts, sometimes we were having a hard time getting through to the local district number. If that ends up being your case, you can go back to the congress.gov website and just use that number that's listed there. Ideally, we want to get someone on the phone so we make sure that they're logging our concern. If you leave a voicemail, it may not have the same impact. And so we really want to have that brief conversation with someone live. So that's what we're recommending for today. And so with that, Allie, if you want to come off mute, we'll do our brief little role play.
Hi, you've reached
Cool.
the office of Senator Darbouze. How can I help you today?
Hi there, this is Matthew Ryan. I'm a graduate student over at UCSF and a constituent. I live in San Francisco in zip code 94143. I have a message I was hoping you could share with your boss.
Of course, happy to help. Let me just grab a pen real quick.
Okay,
All
sure,
right.
take your time.
All right, what would you like me to pass along?
Great, yeah. So I'm calling to express my strong opposition to the proposed rule from the Office of Management and Budget. You may have heard about this, but if not, this proposal would make sweeping changes to how federal grants are awarded without thoroughly assessing what these changes could mean for, medical research, patients, or taxpayers. And I know the Senate has taken actually a really important step towards temporarily pausing this rule with their language in the most recent continuing resolution. But this temporary delay that's in there is not a permanent solution. So I'm calling to ask that Senator Padilla do whatever he can to stop the OMB rule.
Sure, I can pass that right along for you.
Awesome, great. And do you need my address to log the call?
Yes, that would be helpful.
Sure. Okay, so it's 515 Parnassus, Parnassus Avenue in San Francisco, California.
Okay, thank you so much. I recorded your message. Have a nice day.
Great, thanks. You too. Take care.
Ellie, I see your hand raised.
I have to do this. These guys, this is my team, and I'm so proud of you for this. So I wanted to say that. I also wanted to say that it's important when you make this call and you say, I'm a graduate student at UCSF, not speaking for UCSF. So really
Definitely,
underscore the fact that you're not speaking for the institution that you're associated with or the business that you're associated with. So I would just add that one caveat in. Otherwise, this was fabulous.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Ellie. I've heard folks say, speaking in my personal capacity, anything just to indicate that you're speaking as your individual and not on behalf of your employer.
That works
super
perfectly.
Important.
I'm speaking in my personal capacity, works perfectly.
Awesome. Thanks, Ellie. Really, really important point. And then, after you do for one office, hopefully it feels pretty good and pretty easy. Just do the same thing for the other two. So go back to the tab you have for congress.gov, go to your next representative or senator, click contact, and rinse and repeat. And so you should have, again, 3 calls total unless you live outside of a state, in which case you may have fewer. But yeah, that's it. And, maybe you may get a little jittery for the first one, totally okay, especially as you're learning to kind of adapt the script, make it sound like your own voice. But hopefully by the second call, you're feeling good with the script. So yeah, that's what we have in terms of the step-by-step guide. I'm happy to pause here and take any questions folks might have.
One question we got in the chat was, would it be better to say a generic, I'm a graduate student in your, district or state, or, I work for a nonprofit scientific society. That is another way that you could do it, for sure.
Yeah, Ellie or Erin, did you have any thoughts on that? It's an interesting question.
I think whatever you're comfortable sharing, if you can be more specific, do it. If you're worried about, attribution or anything, I don't think you need I think you can be generic, and just say I work for a nonprofit scientific society without naming it, because you're calling again as an individual and you're giving the where do you work or what is your role more to indicate why you care about the issue, like why this is prompting you to call because I'm in this space. This is going to impact the work that I do in your community. But you can be as specific or non-specific as you would like to be. And the only other thing I would raise, Matt and Allie, if you want to talk about the area code stuff, or I don't know if that's coming, but.
Oh, yeah. It's great. Yeah. Kind of asterisks. We know, definitely in my case, a lot of folks have phone numbers from wherever they grew up that may not match the area code that they now live in. And so that's where we really try to emphasize, kind of giving the address, making sure that they register that you're a constituent, because otherwise they may assume just off the rip that you are calling from outside of the district. So it's especially important if you've moved out of state from where you grew up. Yeah, that's why we have that part in the script as well.
I think Betsy has her hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. Is there a way, maybe a website, to find out what the stated positions are of all of the senators and Congress people?
I don't believe that there is a place to find that information. If your member of Congress has been very outspoken, they may have put out a press release on the issue. But again, I think the document with APLU that Allie just put in the chat is tracking members that have signed, that have put out letters, and you could see if your member signed it, but there's no list that says where they stand on the position for every single member of Congress with the position on this issue.
Yeah,
there
my
hasn't been a
rep-
formal vote, unfortunately, that is just on this. So there's a lot of noise in any vote that's been taken, like the Senate vote. Otherwise, it would be possible if there was a definitive vote.
Right. No, my rep, I was looking at his site. He's clearly involved in science and technology, and I would have expected there to be a statement here, and there isn't. So that makes me worry. And I'll look at those resources at APLU. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. And hopefully after calls today, and if your reps get meetings on this issue and more people are calling, it may prompt them to be publicly outspoken on the issue.
And Ellie already replied in the chat to this one, but I just wanted to flag that Christina asked, is it appropriate to ask for a meeting also on this phone call? And yes, you can definitely ask for a meeting. That's also one of the follow-ups that we suggest. So great idea. We love it.
And just to reiterate, for anyone who missed it earlier, Erin has in the guide that's in the chat, pretty in-depth kind of talking points and a bit more language that folks can use for in-person meetings, and also a step-by-step of how to request those meetings. So for today, we're focusing just on logging our positions here. So depending on kind of how much time it takes to get a hold of someone, it might be good to call back. But for sure, we're definitely encouraging folks to schedule in district meetings, and yeah, we have a lot of resources for you if you choose to do that. That'd be great. Awesome. Any other questions coming through the chat that we wanted to address? If not, we will get started. So we'll leave up this slide here, which just has the script. But again, if Jacqueline, you can drop the one-page guide back into the chat again, just so folks have that handy. This is all in there along with the link to the congress.gov. We'll be coming back together at 2:25 to kind of briefly debrief how that went and discuss some of these next steps, including in-person meetings. But please feel free to stay on camera so we can kind of have this community feel, but do whatever you need to do and just stay muted during this time. And if you have any questions that come up while you're on these calls, things you need to troubleshoot, having difficulty finding a phone number, for example, feel free to put it in the chat and we can help you out there. Folks, pause there. Hopefully folks were able to get through all of their calls. If not, we should be able to give you back a minute or two at the end of this to finish that up. But just briefly wanted to hear from folks. Feel free to share in the chat. I know folks were doing this kind of throughout the phone banking session, but how did that go? I know some folks were feeling kind of nervous. Others seemed ready to rock through it. Feel free to share in the chat or raise your hand and we can call on you to unmute.
Well, I'll just say something. This is Betsy. I called John Ossoff's office fully expecting to get voicemail, but then it said if you want to speak to someone, press 2. So I did, waited through some rings, and ended up in the voicemail anyway, which is no surprising because he's got like a rally at a mysterious location that he keeps advertising all over the place. So my guess is he's probably on board with this already. But I left a voicemail with details, my zip and locality and my phone number, and mentioned the CDC, and which is of course in Georgia, which is where I'm located now. And then I got interrupted by something from my HOA where I'm the secretary. So I stopped at number 1, but believe me, this is much better than the POA business that I'm handling. So I'm going to try again later, probably with my other senator and the representative who actually is very active in science. So I'm hoping, even though he hasn't put a statement out, that he's going to be more thoughtful about this. Anyway, thanks so much for having this session. This has been really useful for me.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks, Betsy. That's super awesome to hear that it went well. I'll just say, yeah, all 3 of mine picked up, was able to get to them. So it's, I think it's nice to kind of get over the little hurdle of the jitters. And every new script takes a little bit to get used to, but once you get the hang of it, hopefully it feels pretty good. Well, great. Well, thanks everyone once again for coming and participating. And we think this was a really successful session. Hopefully you think so too. We're hoping to have some kind of more interactive advocacy hours like this in the future. So feel free to share any feedback that you have. Just 2 brief kind of next steps for the folks who are still on the call to help kind of multiply the effect that we're having today. One is to send a text or other sort of message to 3 friends or colleagues, asking them to do exactly what you just did. So just, find your members of Congress, give them a call. You can actually link them directly to the script that we just shared. And there's a kind of step-by-step for doing that, both in the chat and then also in the guide. And then the other one, which, especially if you're feeling a bit hungrier for some big advocacy, is to meet in person with in-district office staff or with your member of Congress. Again, we have a kind of step-by-step guide for that, both in the short one-pager, but then also in the larger advocacy guide that Erin has graciously put together. So hopefully you're able to do that as well. And feel free to reach out if you have any issues with getting those set up. We're happy to be of assistance. And with that, I think we will end it there. But thank you everyone for coming. Thank you for being engaged participants and for doing something new. And yeah, we hope to see you at a future Research America meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.